Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and today I want to talk about castings. Over the past couple weeks I've had a couple discussions about castings, and the first one started out with us looking at these two buckets down here. These two buckets had red wiggler castings in them, and we went through them. We found some good, some bad. We dumped some, and we held on to some, and some of it is right over there. And that container is what I refer to as, it's got a weird name, so hang on to your hats. It's the tall and wide new compared to old, and I gave it a number. This one is number 2, believe it or not. And I've somehow managed to keep tabs on all the different numbers. The other tall and wide new containers are all down here, and the one on the very bottom is one that's never been put into service, so I know that that's number 3, which enables me to deduct that this one here is number 1. And then these all have their own names. There's bin with holes number 1, bin with holes number 2. Then there's the clear bin, and then I get into the, once again, tall category, because these are not tall. These are pretty shallow, but these tall ones, just like the one down here, are also numbered in my mind, because I've got 8 of them now. And the tall and narrow also has one example of old, and all the rest of them are kind of my predominant container at this point. They're the tall and narrow new containers 1 through 8. And it's pretty easy for me to keep track, because usually after I take one out of service it gets cleaned out and used for something else. But I was preparing to take a couple of these out of service today, and then I knew that once I get that rinsed off and piled up over here, it's going to mix in just like the other one that's already here. And then I'll have 3 of my new, well, tall and narrow new bins here without me knowing which is which. So I actually prepared to come down here today with my Sharpie and begin labeling these, the ones that can be mixed up with other ones, in such a way that I can actually distinguish a particular bin from another, regardless of how long it's not been in use, without any context to its previous assignment. So for example here, you can see I went to my spreadsheet to try to deduct which bin number this one was here. So this is the one that I'm referring to as tall and narrow new number 5. So I'm going to scribble the number 5 onto this one so I could tell it apart from all the other ones. And I got a couple others that I want to label accordingly as well. So might seem a little bit over the top, but as long as I've been referring to bins by a specific name of some sort, I just want to be able to refer back to the same bin for whatever reason as I've done in the past. Maybe it is time to revive the old naming convention that I had. I think this one might have had a hippopotamus on it. So for a while we referred to this as the hippopotamus bin. Some sort of naming convention like that might be nice, but for now I'm sticking to what I've got, which is some numbers. So let me take care of that really quick. So here side by side is an example of the wide versus the narrow container. And while they're lined up on your side, if I get them lined up on my side, you can see how much difference there is in the width. Otherwise the height and the length are the same, but this is the larger of the containers. So of the ones I wanted to label today, these are the 2 that are dry and clean and ready to be marked up. And then I've got 2 more that I plan to clean off, get them emptied, clean them off, and also label them at some point today once I've emptied them, before I get them mixed up with a bunch of other ones and don't know which ones they were. So for whatever reason, I just feel like it's a good idea to maintain information and be consistent. So this one is officially number 5, and once I get the other ones out of service, I'll be able to go in here and mark those off as numbers 2 and 3, and then eventually as other ones come out of service and I could rinse them off and turn them upside down and label them as such, I'll do so. But you got to start somewhere, and for me it just seemed like this was my first chance to really start mixing up the bins and not being able to tell which one was which or whatever. Not that it makes that much difference really, but since I do have records that are specific to which bin something occurred in, I might as well be able to tell you which bin it was out of all my bins later on if you ask. So it doesn't seem like too much effort to come back in here and mark up each box with a number corresponding to the way I'm keeping records on it. So, as far as the other two bins are concerned, the ones that I want to get emptied out and cleaned up, those are also systems that are storing castings today, but I do have plans that require me to have some available bins. So today's job is going to be to get those bins emptied, free of the castings that they're storing today, and make them available for other uses. And then what that'll also do is allow me to bring closure to all my little situations in which I'm so-called storing castings. So let's get to work on that. I gotta go find a glove. I'll put these away and we'll be right back. So this first bin that I've got up here on the bench is the one that's going to be labeled as number 2, and it is a bin that used to run what I refer to as a cocoon nursery. So that means I've already gone through the time of letting a bunch of finished castings just sit around after a while, allowing any cocoons that might be in it to hatch and then get those worms all rounded up. So I'm fairly confident that we've managed to collect all the worms. This system here, as shown on the green board, has been sitting around for 71 days, ever since we kind of brought an end to its previous mission, which was just being that cocoon nursery, which means we felt confident that we had hauled out the last of the baby worms, and that it was really, at that point, nothing more than just a package of finished castings. Here's just some oddities that are resting on top of the surface here of the plastic. Plastic is trying to keep the moisture of the bin from being lost, because I've probably also come to the determination that no further drying of the material is really required. And you can see there's some clear evidence that it's not a perfect batch of castings. Some of the little impurities that sort of make their way through my imperfect processes. But you know, it's definitely a nice batch of castings. I guess my main interest in these sort of systems, like ones like this that have been sitting around for 71 days, just sitting there doing nothing. Just always curious to see what the condition of the material is. I'm always just amazed by how nice and damp it is directly below even the driest of surfaces, and even the driest of surfaces out here on the very edges where the plastic didn't cover up very well are not that dry. They somehow managed to get the moisture from the neighboring material. And you know, it's interesting, there's something about castings that have been sitting around for a little while, like these, for a few months. I got this sort of feeling that, like, the bacteria and the microbes, even though there's no worms left in here, the material is continuing to break down gently and slowly, and it just has this really nice earthy smell to it. I wish I could somehow share that, but it's my best way of describing the scent. It's just this really nice, clean, earthy smell. So this stuff, kind of like the last batch of castings that I went through and emptied out of its storage box, I think I'm going to go ahead and give these to the plants today, because that last amount that I divvied up to the plants sort of got spread out pretty generously in the first few plants that received some, and by the end I was also kind of trying to get the job done because I was getting rained on as the intensity of the rain kept increasing by the minute. I was really at the end just trying to get the job done of divvying out the castings as like a top dressing to all the plants in my garden. I've got a feeling that some of the ones at the end just didn't get quite as much as the ones that I gave some to in the beginning. So maybe I'll just go like in a reverse order at this point. It'll time out good too, just like last time. As I mentioned earlier, it was raining, kind of flushing all the nourishment and goodies out of this material right down into the plants for which it's intended. And since there's rain expected all tonight and all day tomorrow, this does seem like an opportune time to dish out some vermicompost to my garden plants as a nice top dressing, and at the same time free up a container that I could use for other projects. Really nice castings. So yeah, no, you know, wasn't expecting to find worms in it. I'm sure you weren't either after the explanation I provided. And that's the whole idea, is that I'm using the castings only pretty much, and I'm not hauling a bunch of worms out, you know, trying to collect them up if I can. So I've got this other container. It's container number 3 in this case. This is number 2, that'll be number 3. That's the compost from a recently retired or finished batch of mixed worms, my mixed breed box. And that system's only been around for 24 days now, so 3.5 weeks since that stuff was taken out of service. So I'm sure it'll look kind of similar to this, but this stuff really is nice, I gotta say, even though it's got some little sticks and stems in it. Can't complain. So I'm gonna go get that other one out here and we'll see how that one's coming along. Alright, so once again, you can see I've preemptively put on the number 3 here until such a time that I have a chance to turn this upside down and write it in under here. I just thought that if the labels fall off and they're both empty and whatnot, it might be hard to distinguish one from the other, and this way I've got a tentative label on there already telling me which of the 2 bins it is. Let's see how things look in here. I'm curious. 24 days since the bin was taken out of service. Usually in my cocoon nurseries, which I believe this might have been too. No, this might not have been. This might have just been never really designated as such. It was just kind of left to be. So yeah, I would have to say that it too was definitely just a bunch of castings sitting around, allowing time for cocoons in the material to hatch and get collected up. So whether or not I called it a cocoon nursery at the time or not doesn't matter. It's what I did with the bin, which is pretty much the same as what I've been doing in a lot of my bins lately, is you know, moving the worms themselves off onto greener pastures, fresh material for them to live in and to chew on, but hanging on to the castings rather than putting them to direct use and allowing for some time for the cocoons that are most likely lingering within that material to all hatch and produce a bunch of baby worms that can be reintroduced into my population. So here too you can see chunks of avocado skin. I don't even know what this is. It doesn't seem like the same stuff. Maybe it is. It's all very brittle. I could probably crush it to bits if I wanted to, and it's just another example of how my stuff isn't really, you know, store grade. It's just homemade grade, which is pretty good as far as I'm concerned. And I guess the other thing I like about letting this stuff sit around too is that sometimes if there is a lot of seeds mingled up inside the stuff, then they'll start to grow out a little bit, and those little seedlings can all get kind of mashed out, and at least this way you're creating a collection of castings that have had at least some of its viable seeds already germinate, and you know, you're not providing some castings that are just going to start popping out tons of tomatoes, although that's usually what I kind of expect from my castings. I don't know about yours. So what have we here? It's a little baby worm, little guy. I wasn't expecting to see many worms, or any really, but since this is from the mixed population and I couldn't tell you what type of worm this is, could be a red wiggler, could be an Indian blue worm, might be a European night crawler. Just based on the movement, I think I know which one it is. What do you think it is? I'm going to release it into my active mixed worm bin, and then I think we're done here. Well, since the next stop for this box is the garden, I might as well take all these castings that stuck to the plastic and make sure they're in with the rest. Although, what am I dealing with here now? Ugh. I don't know what this is. Is the plastic going to pieces, maybe? Oh no, yeah, it's paper. I had a whole bunch of paper stuck to this one. Just little scraps of paper. Oh well. My imperfect castings. Maybe I'll save cleaning off the other one for another time, just so I don't have any more surprises. But let's just go ahead and grab the castings that came out of the other tub. Pop them into here. I don't think there's going to be much to be said as far as a difference between how they look. They're very similar, I would say. Now I just can't seem to resist looking for worms. Now that I found one, I'm guessing maybe I can find another, but I think we actually did a pretty good job getting all the worms out of here. Let's get the other castings dumped into here. It'll be interesting to see what they look like once they're in here right alongside the other ones. See if I could do it in a way that I don't create a massive mess. Oh well. I guess I kind of called it upon myself in a way. Hopefully most of it landed right here on the table. Oops, next to me. And a little bit of it is left in the box, and we'll be able to get that out as well pretty quickly too. Alright, well, I think we got the last of it here. I brushed what was on the table off into here, and I scraped out the inside of the box to the best of my ability. So we got ourselves a nice tub full of castings here. Look at that. I really can't tell much difference. Just wondering if just by handling it there might be some sort of a texture difference. I don't know. Let's see. Let's try this one. It's hard to say. Somehow this stuff coming from the red wigglers and the Indian blue worms, probably mostly Indian blue worms, some European night crawlers in here, this stuff somehow seems a little bit finer. Maybe it's because they're smaller sized worms. Feels like a much more fine kind of a casting as opposed to what's on this side. Somehow it has a little bit of a kind of a chunkier, granular feel to it somehow. So, I don't know. Color wise, very similar. Just texture wise, a little bit different. So now over here someplace I saw a worm cocoon. I didn't know if it was one that had already had the babies crawl out of or not. It's hard to tell sometimes. This one looks like it might still have a little ways to go. It's not that dark in color yet. But at this point, you know, there is kind of a limit that you have to draw at some point when it comes to storing your castings. And I a lot of times feel like I just haven't even learned that yet. So I'm still trying to get myself out of lazy mode and actually bring closure to, you know, my bins that are complete. I found another little baby worm in here. Gonna put him in with the other mixed bin as well. And at this point, what do I do if I find more? I think their next stop is probably just gonna be the garden at this point. Well, so on my way outside, I'll bring this tub with me as well and rinse them both after I've emptied this one, given it to my plants. And after that, I've still got a little bit more work to do. After I've cleaned them off, I've still got to come in here and annotate them. But all that stuff is kind of boring, so I'll just leave it at that. But before I go, let me just really quickly say thank you. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to leave me a thumbs up. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel too. That's really appreciated as well. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.